Is it possible that an entire ancient civilization lies buried in the deep ocean south of India? कल्पना कीजिए, समुद्र की गहराइयों में दबी एक सभ्यता. This is the legend of Kumari Kandam. In ancient Tamil Sangam texts, this maiden continent is described as a vast, prosperous landmass, the original cradle of the Tamil language and its arts. According to the literature, this was a highly organized society divided into 49 specific territories and nourished by the Paduli River. Here, the Pandyan kings hosted literary academies where mortal poets supposedly composed verses alongside gods. But this golden age did not last. The texts describe a series of cataclysmic ocean deluges, known as Kadal Kol. These rising tides repeatedly swallowed the land, forcing the survivors to migrate steadily northward. Mahan Jal Pralay, jisne sab kuch mita diya. For centuries, historians treated these dramatic accounts as folklore, or perhaps as poetic descriptions of the natural decay of ancient cities. The myth remained a regional story until the 1800s, when European naturalists studying animal populations stumbled upon evidence that seemed to provide a startling unintended validation. In 1864, British zoologist Philip Sclater was investigating a biological puzzle in his essay, The Mammals of Madagascar. Sclater found identical lemur fossils in both Madagascar and India. However, the fossil record showed absolutely no trace of these animals in the lands lying between them, like Africa or the Middle East. To explain how lemurs crossed the ocean, Sclater hypothesized a continuous, sunken land bridge connecting Madagascar to the Indian subcontinent. He named this hypothetical continent Lemuria. By giving a scientific name to a sunken southern landmass, Sclater unintentionally provided a geographical mechanism for the believers of Kumari Kandam. The biological theory collided with ancient poetry, turning a local legend into a global scientific mystery. Tamil revivalists quickly adopted Sclater's hypothesis. By equating the newly proposed Lemuria with Kumari Kandam, they used Western zoology to validate their ancestral claims of a drowned homeland. The concept then caught the attention of Helena Blavatsky and the Theosophists. They absorbed Lemuria into their own mystical belief system, using it to build a complex creation story for humanity. Blavatsky's occult writings claimed Lemurians were an ancient root race. Over time, related fringe groups even declared that survivors of the sunken continent were still hiding in remote locations, like deep within Mount Shasta in California. Chipe Hue Rahasye, or Prachin Purvaj. These eccentric offshoots proved popular, and the original scientific inquiry into lemur habitats was quickly buried under a dense thicket of myth and misinformation. But while the cult surrounding Lemuria grew throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, geologists were gathering the data required to dismantle the land bridge theory entirely. Kumari Kandam had transitioned from classical Tamil poetry into a chaotic blend of pseudoscience and national pride, just as the scientific community was preparing to rethink the entire surface of the Earth. The definitive counter-argument arrived in the mid-20th century, as the scientific community accepted Alfred Wegener's theory of continental drift and the mechanics of plate tectonics. In the reconstruction of the supercontinent Gondwana, you can see the true explanation for the lemur fossils. Millions of years ago, Madagascar and India were physically locked together as a single landmass. They didn't need a bridge. As tectonic plates shifted, India broke away and drifted north. Crucially, the continental crust moved horizontally across the ocean floor, rather than dropping vertically into the depths. When the Indian plate finally met the Eurasian plate, the crust buckled upward in a massive collision, creating the Himalayas. Mahadwibonki Tucker say Himalaya ka janam. Because tectonic plates move horizontally and crumple at their edges, geology dictates that a massive, intact continent simply sinking into the Indian Ocean is geographically impossible. Intriguing. For decades, plate tectonics seemed to close the book on sunken lands. Then, in 2013, a team of geologists from the University of Oslo discovered evidence that shifted the conversation. While analyzing sand samples from the beaches of Mauritius, the researchers found ancient zircon crystals. The island itself is a young volcanic formation, but these minerals are up to 2 billion years old, a signature of ancient continental crust. This map of the Indian Ocean floor outlines the remnants of Mauritia. It is a genuine sunken microcontinent, roughly 3 times the size of Crete, torn apart and dragged underwater during the prehistoric separation of India and Madagascar. Mauritia is tens of millions of years older than human existence, so it does not literally represent the Kumari Kandam of Tamil poetry. However, it proves that the ocean floor does hide the fragmented remains of the prehistoric past. To find the reality behind the myth, we have to look to the end of the last ice age. Around 12,000 years ago, melting glaciers caused global sea levels to rise rapidly. As the waters swelled, they inundated vast stretches of low-lying coastal regions. Early human settlements were swallowed, and land bridges, like the one that historically connected India to Sri Lanka, disappeared beneath the waves. The Coddle Cole of Sangam literature likely records a genuine human experience, a cultural memory of rising tides passed down through generations of coastal dwellers. बदलती समुद्र का प्राचीन मानव अनुभव. Seen through this lens, Kumari Kandam becomes a powerful symbol, a representation of coastal homelands and a thriving early culture lost to environmental change. The story of Kumari Kandam reflects a deep human resilience, a way for early civilizations to document a changing world, preserved in poetry until modern science arrived to map the reality of the deep. इंसानी यादों और विज्ञान की अमर कहानी.